This video is going to be a beginner's guide to Honkai Star Rail that will hopefully get you pointed in the right direction so that you don't feel lost with anything inside the game, and no matter where you are in your progression, you sort of understand what you're seeing and what you're meant to be doing. Now, I will have more in-depth guides, like things like in-depth combat guides and stuff like that as well, and I will add them to the pinned comment as I do release them. Also, keep in mind that this is recorded based off of closed beta, so if anything does change, I will add that to the pinned comment, and if needed, I will revise these videos. But I wanted to get out as much information around the start of the game as I can so you guys, once again, can be pointed in the right direction. So the main things we're going to cover and go through in this one is going to be things like your stamina usage, your Trailblazer level, your character progression, and everything that there is to do with your characters, the overworld, summons, also the main game modes that you're going to be focusing on, and where to really target your focus through the campaign to make sure you're moving in the right direction. Also, if you have any questions at the launch of the game, I will probably multi-stream it here on YouTube and Twitch, so whichever one you prefer, jump over to there, follow it there, and you can jump in and ask questions during the launch of the game. So to kick it off, this game is a Hoyoverse game, so it will have many UI and core functionality similarities to Genshin, but keeping in mind that I don't play Genshin and other players may not play Genshin as well, I'm going to treat it on its own merit and go through everything in order. Now, if you do play Genshin, some of this stuff will feel comfortable, but there are a lot of differences. For instance, this one is a turn-based game. Now, we do have an overworld that you can roam around. Think more traditional JRPG style, where you roam around this overworld. It's not an open world, it's very enclosed and direct on where you can go, but you will see enemies in that world and you interact with them. You can attack them or use an ability on them, which we'll go through in a minute, to get into combat, and that is where you're going to enter an instance turn-based combat. Defeat it, then you will be returned back to the overworld where you can continue to explore and go to your next mission objectives. So a quick basic overview of the combat is that every character, when you get into combat, will have 3 abilities that they can use and a passive. The 3 abilities are going to be a basic skill which generates a skill point, and the skill points are shared among your team. They're also going to have a skill which is going to drain a skill point, and then an ultimate ability which, as the battle goes on, they will generate energy and it will consume their max energy to use their ultimate ability. And then, like I said, every character has a passive, and they can also have other slight passives tied into their other abilities that you will get over time, but we'll look more at those when we look at character progression. Now, on top of that, when we're outside of combat, we do have an extra ability that we can use, which, like I mentioned earlier, when you're in the overworld, you can see the enemies out there, and you can use this skill to enter combat with them. Now, some of these are buffs where they buff themselves or their teammates, some maybe have a heal tied into them, and some may just deal extra damage or debuff enemies at the start of battle. And on top of that, you can check what the enemies are weak against, and in general, if you're going into combat with them, you want to attack them with something that they are weak against. When we look at character progression, there's several ways to enhance your character. First of all, you have your character's level and ascension. As you level them up, you'll hit the level cap and you'll have to ascend them to keep leveling them. Now, your character's ascension is also going to be tied into your Trailblazer level, which is your account level. So to upgrade your characters, you will have to continue to upgrade your account level, which is basically done by completing daily quests and also by consuming your stamina inside the game. Next up, we have light cones. Now, these are comparable to weapons in other games for your character. If they are of the right class, they will get bonus effects from the light cone itself. On top of that, they will get stats that get added to your character's base stats, and there is 2 ways to upgrade these things. There is superimposing, where you use duplicates of the same one to upgrade it, which is going to increase the ability that it gives your character, normally going to increase percentages of attack bonuses and stuff like that it will give. Then the other way to do it is to just level them up and ascend them, which are going to just take general materials that you will farm throughout the game. Next up, we have traces. Now, for lack of a better word, these are kind of like skill trees, except it's not like you're making definitive decisions. These are kind of skill trees that you'll eventually get everything, so you don't have to get one thing and leave the other one out. Now, what you're going to get out of these is upgrades to all of your character's skills. Also, Also, each character will get 3 unique upgrades to skills or passives, if you will, that affect them in different ways. And then on top of that, you're going to get some stat bonuses that you can pick up along the way. Now, each character is going to have different priorities. These become quite expensive to upgrade, especially when you get towards, the later game, the materials that you have to farm. So for your characters, you're really going to want to focus in on specific stat upgrades that your character really needs, and maybe leave the other ones until later on. So you want to get the key things done for all of your main characters, and obviously then upgrading the skills because they're going to give you good percentage increases and stuff like that. But like I said, eventually you will unlock everything in the traces if you have the materials to do so. Next up, we have the relic system. Now, this is your gearing system, very similar to Genshin or any other turn-based game with these randomized stat gearing systems that you've seen. Now, we have the general relics, and then we have 2-piece planet ornament sets. The planet ornament sets you're going to get from the simulated universe, and then the relics, the 4-piece relics, you're going to get from other areas that you're going to farm throughout the world. Now, when we look at this, we've got 4 different pieces for the main set that you can get 2 set and 4 set bonuses for. Now, with these, your head and hands have a fixed main stat, being on the hands attack and on the head HP. Then you have a body and feet portion. Now, the body can have some different stats. They can both have HP, attack, and defense, but then your body can also have crit rate, crit damage, outgoing healing boost, and also affect hit rate, whereas your boots can have speed and break effect tied onto them as their main stats. So those are the 2 pieces that are going to have those randomized main stats where you're going to be fishing for the ones that you really want for your character. Normally in these games, it often ends up being like crit damage and speed, but for different characters, it is going to be different depending on the strategy you use with them and the way they play. Then we also have a wide range of substats that you can get on these equipment as you upgrade them every 3 levels. They will either unlock a new substat until they have 4 substats on them, and then each 3 levels after that, it will upgrade one of those substats. Now, the planet ornaments similarly have differing stats. Both of these slots have different stats that you can get on them. They do also include things like elemental damage, which can definitely be more effective on certain characters. So this one, I will do a more in-depth guide, but I just wanted to give you the basics on the relic system. But like I said, if you've played any other turn-based game or something like Genshin, you'll be fairly familiar with this system. Then the final progression path for your character is going to be the Eidolon system. Now, this is going to be your duplicate system. So as you get more copies of a character, you can upgrade your Eidolon up to a total of 6 times. Now, each step along the way will give you unique effects to each character. At level 3 and at level 5, it will upgrade some of your skills further, but for all the other levels, it will give unique effects to your characters, which can be more important for some characters than others, and certain levels will be more effective for certain characters. That one I will do more in depth when we look at specific character builds and stuff like that, when we talk about what the key Eidolons are, but there is a dupe system, and this is it. The next thing I want to look at is going to be the game modes. Now, obviously we have the story game mode. This is going to be very basic. When you go into your quest tab, it's always going to be the yellow quest that you go to. And when you do these, you're just going to progress through them. And eventually you will hit a point where you can no longer progress, and you've got to increase your Trailblazer level to continue with the quest. So once you hit that point, then you're going to be looking towards the other game modes. Now, the other game modes are things you're going to unlock in the world, and then you can go to this menu and you can basically just teleport to them to go ahead and farm whatever you want. So first off of these, we have the Calyx Golden. This is where you can farm for character experience, Lycone experience, and credits. Most people shouldn't really be farming these, I don't think, except for whales and people spending a lot of stamina on refreshes, meaning they're progressing faster than the game gives you sort of resources for. But I'd assume most people won't spend too much time in this area. Next, we have the Calyx Crimson. Now, this is where you're going to get those upgrade materials for your traces. You will definitely spend some time at some point farming these because trace upgrades are going to be a very important thing towards the later end of the game, and also through general progression as well. Then we have the Stagnant Shadow. Now, this is where you're going to get the limit break materials for your characters based on their element. You'll obviously be spending some time here when you need to limit break your characters. Pretty self-explanatory. Then we have the Cavern of Corrosion. Now, this is where you're going to farm for those main 4 pieces of your relics or equipment, whatever you want to call it. And each one of these is going to drop 2 different pieces of gear. And what you farm is really going to depend. I'll put what my recommendations are in a future video. But in general, this is where you're going to do your standard gear farming. Moving on past that, we have the Echoes of War. Now, this is something that you can complete 3 times per week. Just keep in mind, these do have some key limit break materials for some of your traces. So don't go just farming one of them all in at the start, because then you might not be able to upgrade the traces that you need. I always leave these to the end of the week as well, because if I level up and I can do a more difficult one, I will get better drops. Then after that, we have the Simulated Universe. Now, this one is going to reset weekly, and you're going to want to get your weekly points to the max, because as you get them maxed out, you're going to get extra rewards. Then you can use some of the currencies you get in Herder's store to buy yourself some strong light cones, some summons, and other stuff in there. So definitely one you want to stay on top of through the week. But also, if you do want to farm for some of those planner ornaments, which are the 2-piece sets of gear, those additional 2 that you can get, this is where you're going to farm them. From different worlds will drop different pieces of gear, and as you level up your account, you will get into more difficult modes with better drops and so on and so forth. Same with basically all the other modes. As you increase your Trailblazer level, you will be able to do harder modes and get better drops. Then the final one we have is the Forgotten Hall. Now, at base, this has the Forgotten Hall memory, which is a 15 floor basically mode that once you clear it, you will be able to unlock the Memory of Chaos, and this is the true endgame mode in the game. It will take most players a long way to get there, so I'm not going to cover this too much, but this is one that resets bi-weekly, and it's going to give you some good rewards if you can manage to clear as much as you can of it. But this one, like I said, not really relevant for a beginner's guide, so let's continue. Now, I've mentioned several times in this video your Trailblazer level and the need to upgrade it to get into difficult modes, level your characters, and stuff like that. Now, as you level up, you can go back to Pom Pom on the ship, and you can basically claim rewards for every level that your account has leveled up. This is obviously often going to give you sometimes some summons, energy, stamina refills, experience for characters, and light cones, and credits. Those are the main things you're going to get from this. But also, as you hit certain limit points, like level 20, 30, so on and so forth, you will unlock new upgrade missions, which can increase your equilibrium level. They're very basic missions that you have to go on to kill a few enemies. Make sure you do this once you hit those, 20, 30, 40 level limits, because completing that mission and upgrading your equilibrium level is going to be what actually unlocks those new limitations for your account, not just reaching the level itself. So make sure every 10 levels, and then I think like level 65 is another one, you go there and you do those missions, because like I said, otherwise you won't get those added benefits for the leveling up of your account. Now I want to jump in and talk about summons. I'm not going to go overly in depth in here. We do have a beginner banner. Rerolling is an option. I'll have a reroll guide out and who to reroll for and stuff like that. The main thing that I wanted to talk about in the summons is basically that I do not recommend using your premium currency to summon on the standard banner. When we get to 300 summons on the standard banner, you do get to select one of those base 5-star characters and get them. However, I still think it's best off, if you are going to use your premium currency on summons, it's best to save for the exclusive banners and summon on them. Now, as for light cones, in general, I think for most players, you probably want to miss that, because most players do have the most fun getting the new characters and stuff like that. Situational, the light cones, yes, but in general, save your premium currency, and if you're spending your premium currency on summons, I would only focus on the raid up banners on a character you really like, and then as you just get standard banner summons along the way, you can pop them as you go. You get them weekly from Herder and leveling up and stuff like that, and other sources around the game. So you will get some of those. Feel free to summon the tickets as you get them, but for your premium currency, ideally hold on. And to finish it off, I wanted to go through what your priority should be inside the game. People are often limited on time, so I wanted to tell you what I would recommend doing as your priority inside the game. Number one priority in my mind is completing your daily quest. They just give you so much experience to your Trailblazer level. If you miss dailies, it's really going to slow down your progress. So if you can jump in there and do your daily missions, they don't take very long at all. Do those, you're going to get a good chunk of experience. After that, what you want to kind of focus on is the story, progressing as far as you can in the story until you reach the limit where you're capped and you can't go any further based on your Trailblazer level. Then after that, obviously every day you want to keep doing those dailies, but then it's just a matter of make sure you're burning all your stamina and you don't max out your stamina. So what you're farming is going to change on your position in the game, whether you're trying to limit break some characters, level up some light cones, get some gear. It depends along the way, but in general, spending your stamina on anything is better than leaving it fully capped, because at least then you're getting the experience, because you gain experience for every piece of stamina that you spend. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to round up in this beginner's guide. If there's anything else you guys really want to know, let me know. Like I said, I was just trying to get everything, the basics to everything covered in this video, and then I'll go more deep dive into other things like team building, gearing, combat, all that stuff in other videos. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.